These days, so many of us find ourselves on a hamster wheel, racing to keep up with the unrelenting pace of modernity. We spin feverishly as we're met with never-ending distractions, dilemmas with no clear-cut solutions, in a world fragmented by conflict. We could do better, right? Well, as teachers, consultants, and leaders who seek to help social systems evolve, it's important that we get back to basics and first understand how people make sense of their worlds. If reality is what we make of it, what goes into the making? Inspired by the work of cognitive and moral developmental theorists, Robert Kegan introduced the world to a theory that suggests that the way each of us constructs our realities differs depending on how far along we are in a developmental process. Yes, believe it or not, the majority of us don't stop developing our capacity to understand the world when we reach 21. We may have thought so at the time, but we continue to develop through adulthood. With the right set of experiences and support systems, we can continue to grow an even more complex ability to understand ourselves and interact with others. Welcome to the world of Constructive Developmental Theory. What makes this all so very interesting is that cognitive maturity is another form of diversity in organizations, and it's really worth understanding. You're probably already wondering, what's my level of cognitive development? What about my boss? And what about that nagging colleague? You may be pretty far along if you're already watching this video. You may also wonder what it takes to get to the next level, whatever that is. Well, keeping in mind that this is a theory, let's take an even deeper look, and you can judge for yourself. If you're interested, Robert Kegan has written a couple of books that take an even deeper dive. In Over Our Heads goes about 20 leagues beneath the sea, and The Evolving Self goes another 20,000. Let's just wade in the water for now. To begin, we need to talk about subject and object, two features that are central to the way we make sense of things. On any given day, there is you, unique you, the conscious observer, the self that has perceptions and experiences. This is what we call subject. But life would be weird if it were just you, of course. So in addition to subject, we need an object, and plenty of them. Objects are things that you observe outside of yourself, the things you have a relationship with. Now, depending on your level of development, you understand subject and object differently, and this has a profound impact on the way you process your experiences. It shapes the way you perceive the people around you, how you see yourself, and what keeps you up at night. Kegan breaks this down into 5 different orders of consciousness, not necessarily dependent on an individual's age, but which have a certain common trajectory from childhood through adulthood. If you have kids, the first order of consciousness will sound really familiar. It's the impulsive toddler who really can't yet tell the difference between themselves and their worlds. Subject and object are one. Those little apples of our eye tend to react off of basic needs, and the world delivers. If hungry, cry. If angry, hit. If excited, squeal. It's their world. You just live in it. The second order of consciousness, called imperial, falls into the 6 to 10-year-old range, where the child begins to process things as concrete facts. The subject is able to hold the object apart from themselves and begins developing a point of view. That's right, they get picky, and they're not afraid to let the world know what their preferences are. They now have a disposition. At the same time, they develop a pretty keen appreciation for cause and effect. They know that they, the subject, bite their sister, the object, and there will be negative consequences, a price to be paid. As such, these little tykes can bamboozle their parents into buying them a toy, the object, when they, the subject, throw a tantrum. The third order, marked by adolescence, is referred to as interpersonal. At this level, a person is no longer consumed by what they want and what they need to do to get it. Instead, they make sense of things by adhering to the expectations of others. The third order is about what people, who are other subjects, want from you, rather than the object you want from them. So we end up making generalizations of the world based on a right view of it, which we've learned from others, particularly authority figures. We also learn how society tells us to show up in our relationships. We're zit-prone, self-conscious socializers. Rather than having relationships, we are our relationships. Just to make sure we're playing one of these roles correctly, we spend extended periods of time instant messaging about mutual interests and posting selfies in social media to prove that we fit in. While the third order is about conforming to our role in society, society itself really isn't front and center for us to reflect on. That's where the fourth order of consciousness comes in. When and if we graduate to the fourth order, known as self-authoring, we're no longer beholden to rules and roles that are prescribed to us by society, experts, and authority. We may consider what they say, of course, but the way we see ourselves is entirely up to us. We develop our own ideology, and we find it fascinating. In this fourth order, we become obsessed with authoring who we are and how we manifest our best selves. Rather than being overburdened by the judgment of others, we have the chutzpah to be genuine, made all the more easier by having had a unique life story that made us who we are. So darn it, whatever society says, you are the authority of you. But wait, there's more. If and when we move into the fifth order of consciousness, known as the self-transforming mind, we are no longer consumed with constructing a single best identity because we are able to open to the ever-present possibility of reinventing ourselves. In fact, we become wary of any one proclamation of self. We're keenly aware that our agenda for self-actualization is merely a tentative best judgment, still lacking, still permeable to change. We are no longer prisoner to a best self. In fact, we're able to transcend the self-authoring mind. We become free from any given filter of understanding the world. And as a result, we're able to see two conflicting realities as simultaneously valid. Rather than an either-or perspective, there is a both-and perspective. There's a great Taoist fable of an old farmer that can help us understand the fifth order. He lived in a tiny, gossipy village. In fact, you might work in an organization or team just like it. One day, his horse ran away. Upon hearing the news, his neighbors came to visit. "Such bad luck," they said sympathetically. "Perhaps," the farmer replied. The next morning, the horse returned, bringing with it 3 other wild horses. "How wonderful!" the neighbors exclaimed. "Perhaps," replied the old man. The following day, his son tried to ride one of those untamed horses, was thrown, and broke his leg. The neighbors again came to offer their sympathy on his misfortune. "Perhaps," answered the farmer. The day after, military officials came to the village to draft young men into the army. Seeing that the son's leg was broken, they passed him by. The neighbors congratulated the farmer on how well things had turned out. "Perhaps," said the farmer. Now, why does this all matter when it comes to helping organizations evolve? One view is that it's because we each have different levels of cognitive maturity with room for growth. By understanding these 5 levels, we can help others, and we can invite others to help us develop. We can work together toward a wisdom that has been correlated with effective leaders, groups, and change readiness in organizations. Watch my next video to learn about why context matters in developing organizations in this way, and what specifically can be done to recognize, support, and inspire this type of cognitive agility.